will give it that minute for people who are coming from another place, whether it's virtually here or physically somewhere another place. So just 1 minute and we will get started. Excellent. All right, we are good. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Vanessa Lombardo. I am actually in New Jersey. And so as I was saying to Mike, as we were kind of getting started, of course, wanted to plug a couple of New Jersey things, but this presentation is focusing on making the most of Bookshare. And so if you are intending to be at that session, you've come to the right place. In regard to just very quick background, I am an assistive technology specialist. I started my career as a special education teacher, so bringing obviously that to inform a lot of the assistive technology work that I do. And I had started out and have worked in the field of AT for around 17 years, and started as an assistive technology specialist doing evaluations. And like I said, now I am happy to work for Bookshare. And I, like I said, am glad to have you all here. Just a couple of very quick things before we do get started. We start on time, we will end on time. So there are, as Mike had mentioned in the welcome this morning, a place to add notes. So please feel free. I did stick the slides up there as well. So feel free to add anything that you would like into there. Also, in terms of sharing on Twitter, should you happen to be on Twitter, there are a few people who are sharing some of their learnings today, which is really nice to see. So certainly if you are inclined and would like to share, by all means, anything that you hear today. And the last thing, again, New Jersey focus that I wanted to share, I do have a colleague, Catherine Fredericks, in this room with us this morning, but I did want to just briefly just plug NJPART, as Mike did mention in the welcome, if you were there. We are an organization that really is about, networking, troubleshooting, and obviously we are focused in New Jersey, but certainly we welcome people from all over. So do consider checking us out. It is njpart.net. And we would be happy to, have you be a part of all of our conversations. So let me just pop this into presenter mode and we will, like I said, get started. So the first thing that I always like to just ask, of course, is in regard to Bookshare, I am curious, you could just stick your answers in the chat if you don't mind. Are you brand new to using Bookshare? Are you somewhat familiar with it? Or would you consider yourself very comfortable, really feel very comfortable with using Bookshare? So if you would share, like I said, just in the chat, what your status is in regard to Bookshare. And as some of those are just coming in, just again, very broadly, in terms of Bookshare. So it's been around for, going into now our 21st year. So it certainly has been a resource for a while. Currently, we have about 800,000 students nationwide. Bookshare, of course, is international as well in lots of different countries around the world. We serve roughly 50,000 school districts throughout the country as well. And we're reaching 10 million eBooks that have been downloaded by students, again, throughout the country. So it's really exciting stuff. There's a lot happening in the Bookshare world, and we'll get into some of those details. So thank you for people who are posted in the chat. So we have obviously some people kind of all over the board. We have some new people, very comfortable, somewhat comfortable. So we are glad to have everyone here with us, obviously. So our quick learning objectives today. So of course, just a very brief, I always like to do a quick, just kind of what is Bookshare, who's eligible before we get into really the meat of our presentation, kind of making the most, right? So looking at assigning books, reading lists, kind of digging a little more into the collection, different tools that can be used to read Bookshare books. So we'll kind of go through all of that. And I always like to put this out there. Please ask questions anytime. Obviously, I will get to them as I can. Certainly, if I don't know the answer, which I never pretend to know all the answers, I will be happy to find out that information. So again, if I don't know, I can always ping you back via email or whatever, and I will get you the answer to that question. So please feel free to ask questions at any time, and of course share, your experience as well. Okay, so just a very brief 1-minute video in regard to Bookshare. So let's just do a quick listen.
Inside every book is a new world, and nothing should keep you from exploring. Whether you're learning to read, studying for an exam, or just having fun, Bookshare helps you read in ways that work for you. Choose your favorite high-quality voice and listen to your books. Stay focused with karaoke-style text highlights. Adjust text to your perfect size, speed, color, and contrast. Choose from over 1 million titles, ready to read on nearly any device. And the best part? It's free for U.S. students who qualify, and less than $1 a week for qualified adults. So start reading in ways that work for you and explore new worlds with Bookshare.
All right, so just drilling down a little bit into obviously what was just shared. So Bookshare is a resource for students who qualify. We're going to get into that in just a moment, in regard to accessing text. And we have quite a number of books in the collection. And we're always obviously looking to add different books, but it is very, very specific in the fact that it is the text of the book. And the other thing that I always like to make sure to say is that the text is read by the device that the student is using. We're going to talk about all the different tools, but it is a vast library, and we are obviously have it accessible to students as well as adults who have a disability in terms of the qualifications. So what does Bookshare offer? So like I said, we actually, I think it was 2 months ago, it was over the summertime, we crossed into 1 million titles. And so that makes us the largest ebook library. And again, there's all different types of books in different types of formats, which is really critical when you're looking at literacy for students in particular, especially emerging literacy. There's all different ways in which they can access the text. So some of the things that were shown in the video is that you can have the books read along in the kind of that karaoke kind of style where it will scan along with the book. They can have just the audio file. There's also Braille file as well. So there's quite a number of ways in which to read and access the books. And again, we're going to delve a little bit more into the collection, but there are very many textbooks, NIMAC books, books for assigned pleasure reading, and quite a few how-to books, especially with the pandemic. We have really tried to create a collection and multiple collections of how to do different things. So if you want to learn Java, you want to learn how to do a variety of different things, we have quite a number of books for those as well. And obviously, again, we are focusing on, K-12 college students within this realm, but also you can have an adult membership. So students, whether they're in K-12 or college students, we do have a very large grant from OSEP. So Bookshare is free. So it's free, free, free. I always like to emphasize that there is no cost, there is no catch. It is free. And many, almost all the tools also are free. And again, we're going to get into that in a little bit. Some of our third-party partnerships that we have. And then for adults, it is $50 a year. And same thing, it is not per book. That is just a blanket cost for adults who are not with a college or university, or have another way of paying for the membership. So I like to be very, very clear about that. So in terms of eligibility, essentially, it is, again, someone who is blind or visual impairment, some other type of reading disability, such as dyslexia, dysgraphia, or a physical disability. But the primary thing is that whatever disability they have, that it impacts the way that they would access standard print. That really is the overarching framework. So Bookshare is covered under the copyright law, and recently with the Marrakesh Treaty being implemented, it's really kind of broadened some of that horizon. So in terms of a specific example, let's say there's a student who has a disability on the autism spectrum. That in and of itself is not a qualifying disability. However, if that student has difficulty accessing standard print, then they would be considered as qualifying for Bookshare. So we really want to be focused on accessing standard print. If they have a disability in which that is an area of difficulty for them, then they would qualify for Bookshare. So I just like to, again, make that very, very, very clear. And we're going to do a demo of some of these tools, one certainly in particular, but I do like to talk about the different reading tools and, of course, what's on the horizon. Like I said, there's lots of cool stuff that is happening at Bookshare. So some standard ways that students can access it. So certainly on any type of laptop, whether it's a PC or an Apple device, MacBook, iMac. And so our current reader that Bookshare had created, which is now getting a complete overhaul. It's currently called our web reader. And when you go onto bookshare.org, which we will do, there is a read now button. And so what that will do is it will open the book up right in your web browser. So it'll just unpack the book and now you have immediate access to it. So there is no downloading per se. You're accessing directly within the web browser. And again, that's on any device that is connected to the internet, laptop, smartphone, any of that will work with web reader. And like I said, it is getting a complete overhaul and it's going to be now Bookshare Reader. And we are creating a version for PC or laptops, Apple devices and PCs, as well as using it on a tablet, smartphone, Android, and Apple devices as well. So that is currently in the works. There is going to be a private beta that is going to open up possibly January, February of this year, or rather this coming year of 2022. And we're hoping for that full release, for everyone within those coming months. So that is a very, very exciting thing. The other thing, of course, is that on smartphones or tablets, so there are a variety of third-party apps. So again, to be clear, these are not apps that Bookshare has created or maintains, but they do support Bookshare books. And so we like to mention them. One that is very popular because it has a lot of different features is Voice Dream Reader. That does come at a cost. I do put the dollar amount in there, but it does fluctuate. So I really should just put the word has a cost in there, but it does have a cost. So once you buy the app, though, again, there is no cost for Bookshare. You log in with your Bookshare ID, and then you have access to as many books as you want. So the cost is for the app, not for Bookshare and for the Bookshare books, just to be clear. Two other apps, again, on any smartphone or tablet, Android or Apple devices. Dolphin Easy Reader. It's a very straightforward device, app, again, Android, Apple, and it is free. And then Capti Voices is another app as well. There are others, certainly, but these are our main partners. And so obviously we like to share about those. And again, when that Bookshare Reader does become available, it will also be an app, certainly, as well. And then assistive technology devices. So a student who might be using a Braille Note or a Victor Reader Stream, as well as the NLS, the National Library Service. So through the BARD system, obviously through the NLS, accessing those books and accessing Bookshare books as well. And I love to talk about how students are using a variety of tools, Bookshare being one of them, but certainly we want students to have access to as many applications as possible to make their learning as robust and accessible as possible. Okay, so I did see a couple of questions here in the chat, but again, obviously, please feel free to stick any in there. So the first question, who is qualified to make the decision that a student has difficulty accessing standard print? Thank you, Catherine. So essentially, this is anyone at the school who is working with the student. So sometimes there is that this conception that it has to be a medical doctor, right? So a student with a visual impairment, it has to be an ophthalmologist or anything like that. It does not. It does not have to be a medical doctor. It can be anyone on the child study team. So it could be the case manager, it could be the special education teacher, it could also be the gen ed teacher, any related services, PT, OT, SLP, a TVI, And at the college level, anyone in the Disability Services Office or Accessibility Services Office. So it is a one-page form. Everything now is also done online, which is nice. It's a one-page form. You can just email it over to Bookshare, no faxing involved. And so that is has been a very welcome change. Again, when, of course, with the pandemic and not being physically in the office, the fax just did not seem to really be the most efficient way, email rather. So I hope that answers your question. It can really be anyone who's working with the student who sees that need and working with the student in an educational setting. It can be a medical doctor. Certainly there is no law that says that it can't, but it does not have to be. Danielle asked about the web reader or the Bookshare reader. So when the full version, so engineering again hates to kind of give these very hard deadlines. Obviously, we want that beta to take place early January, February, making sure that we're working out all of the kinks. And so I would say they have talked about the fall of next year or the fall of 2022 really being a full, robust working platform, or application. So again, I hate to step over engineering, but certainly there's quite a push to get it out there. So thank you for that question. Let's see. I don't want to skip over anybody. I just want to take a couple more. So Adam, is in regard to accessing demo logins for evaluations? So that is something I do have to double check on that. Definitely just, shoot me an email. I know in the past, so just to, again, we are overseen by the copyright law. So in terms of having access to Bookshare, you have to be someone who does have a print disability. So in terms of the demo accounts, that's where that gets a little tricky. So I have to double check on that. So I can certainly get back to you in regard to that. Because again, the publishers give us the books. That's why we've got 1 million+ titles within the library or within the collection. But the publisher agreement, and we're agreeing to them, this is something that is specifically for individuals with a print disability. And this is not going to be shared, in mass, to individuals who do not have a qualifying disability. So I could certainly get back to that. And then you're welcome. And then in regard to, let's see, can you describe some of the physical disability issues that would allow a student to be eligible for Bookshare? So certainly a student with, let's say, cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, Rett's. So it basically, if a student cannot, not physical. Thank you, Catherine. So a student who would have a type of learning disability, a physical, a visual impairment. And it's essentially, again, it's very loosely, we don't have a list. So in the past, there was like this very specific list. And now, like I said, with the Marrakesh Treaty, it's really kind of been expanded. So there isn't a specific list, but essentially any type of learning disability, specific learning disability, where a student cannot access the text is standard form, right? A hard copy book, or even a digital copy. So this is another kind of piece, right? Digital doesn't always mean accessible. We want to make sure that these students have access to accessible text. Absolutely. All right, great. Again, certainly any other questions, obviously, please feel free to put them in. Okay, so let's go out to Bookshare.org. So let's do a few different things here. Again, really getting into some more in terms of making the most of Bookshare. So first of all, the website is Bookshare.org. I am currently not logged in, and that is intentional for the moment because I want to do a couple of things, and then I'm going to log in as a sponsor, which is what we call a teacher, or the person kind of overseeing the Bookshare account for your organization. But first things first. So in terms of Bookshare.org, like I said, anyone has access to it, and anyone can browse the collection, which again, we're going to do in a couple of minutes here. The only thing that you cannot do, except for a small collection of books, is access the books, but you can see what's there, read a synopsis, So anyone can pop any information into here, title, author, or ISBN number. But one thing that I wanted to talk about was the membership, right? So Bookshare calls teachers sponsors and students members. So there are two membership types for Bookshare. So the first one is an organization. So that would be a school, a university, any other type of organization where they are supporting individuals with a disability, with a print disability. Then there is an individual membership. So students can have both. They can be a member of their organization, and then they can also have their own individual account. The thing that's very important here is that if a student just has an organizational account, and again, we're going to get into this and show you what it looks like on the website. But the conceptual framework that I want you to think about is when a student is part of an organization and they only have an organizational membership, they can only read books that are assigned to them by a sponsor, right, a teacher, or off of a reading list that, again, has been assigned to them. When they have also an individual membership, they can download anything they want. They can look up all kinds of books for pleasure reading, or and anything else. There's newspapers, magazines, all kinds of different high interest books, young adults. Again, we'll get into all those different categories. So a student can have both. They could be a member of the organization and they can have their own individual account. And this individual account, again, really puts the onus on them, right? They want to be able to download any book they want. They can read as many books as they want. So when we're talking about students with disabilities and really looking at teaching them advocacy skills, self-empowerment, we really want them to have both memberships. There is no cost, again, for either membership. So they could just be an organizational member. But if they do, or you as the teacher or the sponsor, give them an individual membership, there is no cost. There's no cost in either which way. For adults, for anyone who is working with adults, that $50, like we were talking about before, they are an individual. So they sign up individually, they pay their $50, 50, and they just have their own individual standalone account. Okay, so we got there just by sign up today, right? So just bookshare.org, sign up today, and it talks about each of those accounts. The other thing that I mentioned was, again, you can search for books, anybody can look for them, but also I want to get a little bit before we log into one specific category of Bookshare books. So we're going to skip a little bit. Again, I'm going to go back, so do not worry, do not be nervous. We are going to go back over all of this, but all the way on this bottom here, so by browse, and then we scroll down to reading lists for general resources, there is a category called demo books. And so this is a list of all books that are out of copyright, or they were publicly available and they never had a copyright. So like you can access any of these books and you can see that here is that read now button, right? Read now. So let's do this Velveteen Rabbit, because typically it's a smaller book, and hopefully every once in a while when I'm on Zoom, this takes a little bit of time, but I did just want to do a quick demo. And this again is a way to possibly introduce Bookshare to a student, or for you just to kind of play around with it. So Adam, as you were talking about that kind of demo, again, we're not logged in, but we do have access to some of these books and we can kind of play around with them. So this is the current Bookshare reader, or web reader as it's called. And again, like I said, this is getting a complete overhaul, and we'll have a lot more features moving forward. But there is a table of contents, so you can skip around in the book. You can flip between the pages. You can have the book read aloud. You can change some settings in here. Again, you could change the font or the background and the text color, make it a larger font size, change the highlighting as it goes across, the speech rate, and there are a couple of voices in here. So again, not super robust, but it is our current version, at least on the PC. And so you can see, you can also flip the invert. So a student, again, who maybe just does better with that kind of black background and the white text versus the other way around, where all that light, of course, is coming in. And you can minimize some of those distractions where it puts the book into full screen. So we got here by, again, going back into our collections. So we did not log in, we clicked browse, and we went through, skipped over a bunch of our special collection, went down into general resources and into demo books. And again, it'll kind of give you a little bit of a taste of what Bookshare is like currently. All right, so let's log in. I am going to log in as our teacher. All right, so I am logged in here. So the first thing I want to go, so anyone, again, who has access to Bookshare, you log in and you can go to My Bookshare. And this tells you everything about your account, okay? So you can see members, so those are your students, okay? So let's take a look at some of our students here. So here is a list of all of our students, and you can see the membership type, right? So our friend Bookshare Ben, he only has an organizational membership type, as does some of the other students. But our friend Read Daily, yes, these are all pun intentional. He has an organizational and an individual account. So he does have both. So as I was saying before, right, I can assign him books as his sponsor, but he has his own login and he can go in there and he can download and read as many books as he wants. So here I can add a student. So we can click on add a member and we're going to input their information. So again, this is for an organizational account. So now I'm going to add this student into my org. So I'm going to put first name, last name, date of birth, the grade level, and then I'm going to create their username and password, put in the information here. And then I do, please do check off what type of disability, again, visual learning, physical, and then their reading preferences. So this is where you can set it up for them that they will always have this as an option. But again, you can change, oh, I forgot to do that. I'll do that. Show you how you can change the format. Oh, I apologize. So I will make sure we go back and do that. You can also then give them access to having an individual membership. So I checked off Bookshare Ben because I see he only has an organizational. And then I went under more actions and I'm going to add an individual membership. And it again walks you straight through the process. So it tells you this is for a current member who does not have an individual membership, which is our friend Bookshare Ben. And his parent is going to get an email. Again, it's a one-page form they need to fill out, and then they email it back. They do not fax it. They can snail mail it if they really wanted to, but they do not have to. And then you can also get a copy of the email if you want, and then click submit. And this is if they already have an individual membership, again, from somewhere else, from another point in time, and you want to link them to your organization. So they already have an individual membership, totally on their own, and now you want to add them. All right, so let me take a quick pause. I just want to look at the chat real quick here. So in regard to the beta testing, in terms of volunteers, so that I am not sure exactly what the status is with that. Same thing in these next, just in the end of this quarter, we're going to get more information on this. So certainly, again, if that's something you're interested in, Adam, certainly shoot me a quick email and I can find that out. So I know all of that is going to be forthcoming. And then there's another question. So is there a way to get a list of school districts matched to the Bookshare contact person? So I think you would be able, the question would be if you were a sponsor. I see that you're an AT consultant for the 2 different counties of schools, but if you're not a sponsor on that account, what we could do, and I have that information, to email our customer service team. It's very robust. There's about 8 or 9 people, and we've expanded the hours as well. Pacific time, but it's 5 a.m. Pacific time to 5 p.m. Pacific time, so 8 to 8 Eastern time. So they should be able to give you that information about who is the contact person, and then being able to square you up in terms of that. Because if you're not a sponsor, that's again one of those things, right? In terms of accessing the information, the sensitive information that's, you know, in the through the account. And can you start and stop in the middle of the text for web reader? So this is an area of difficulty and one of the main catalysts for totally redoing the application is that it depends on the web browser, right? So whether you're using Firefox, whether you're using Chrome, whether you're using Edge, Safari, it all kind of matters. So unfortunately, should you be able to? Yes, but sometimes it can be a little glitchy. And I have heard that, you know, we're always asking for feedback from users, from students as well as teachers. So that can be a little tricky. So it should, however, it unfortunately can be a little difficult. All right, another good question for adults. So yes, we do have volunteer opportunities. And yes, there is a way that they can volunteer hours. So essentially some of those volunteer things are proofreading books, testing things out, stuff like that. So there is that option as well. And same thing, Adam, I can give you the name of the person who is in charge of all the volunteers. And yeah, they basically, you know, kind of assign them different things, and they are able to volunteer a portion of time, you know, in lieu of some of the fee. All right. I just want to hold on the questions because I want to just get through a couple of other things. And then, because I'm looking at our time. Okay, so back to my Bookshare. So I want to get into reading lists. So reading lists. So I went back, so I'm logged in. I went to my Bookshare, my reading lists. So this shows you all of the reading lists that these students have access to. And there are quite a few. So they, you can see how it's been shared, right? So some of them are public, meaning again, anyone has access to them who is a Bookshare member, or privately, right? If I create my own reading list, which we're going to touch on a little bit. So you can kind of see here who's allowed to view it, who owns it, and how many titles are within those reading lists. So here under plus, you can create your own reading list, which again, we're not going to go all the way through, but we'll just kind of start. You can create a sample reading list. This is a sample, and you're going to obviously name it something that makes more sense. You're going to choose who you want to share it with. And then from here, you can add members, you can add titles. So if you wanted for something specifically, let's say just for your class, and you were going to assign it to the different students, you can add that into here. And you can assign, like I said, the different members. So reading lists, and then this is our subscribe list. So we're going to go back out to the collection, and I'm going to show you how to subscribe to a reading list. So again, let's go back to browse. So this is where, so popular reading lists, these are again, just a few samples, and then you can search them all, right? So we kind of have it divided out into books for kids, books for teens, teachers, adults, different awards, some general resources, and then categories with books in different languages, magazines, newspapers, things like that. And there's a little, there are how-to things in here as well. So if you want to learn how to copy a reading list, how to create a reading list, there's some step-by-step instructions on here as well. So books for students. So we have, again, popular series, some accelerated readers, and same thing, search all reading lists for kids. So that'll take you out to the entire collection, specifically tagged that way. High interest books for young adults. And I was just listening to Beth Poss earlier. That was the first session of the day. And she was talking and really emphasizing about, high interest books for students. And obviously we want students to have access to all different types of books. And so while, again, obviously you could be utilizing Bookshare to access the book that is way beyond their reading level at the moment, if they maybe are an emerging or, on their trajectory of obtaining their literacy skills. Books for teachers, so some of the Lexile, we obviously have, I shouldn't say obviously, but working with the NIMAC, so all different kinds of lists in there. Leveled readers as well, Common Core standards. So let's go here, search all reading lists for teachers. So this shows you all of the reading lists in here. So if you're using accelerated readers, the American Foundation for the Blind, they have their own reading list. So let's just choose this for now. And then here's that subscribe button. So now I can see, okay, so I've got 66 titles within this collection. And now I can assign, I can add students, right? My members, students to this if I want them to access some of the books off of this reading list. And it will also appear, if we go back to my reading lists, American Foundation for the Blind, here it is. Now it's part, right? And it's public, so it's obviously available to students, right? So we double checked on that. So let's go back to browse, back to our collection. Same thing for any of these, right? New York Times bestsellers for children's books. If we want to subscribe to that, then it now will appear, right, in my reading list, and I can assign students. There's obviously one student in here, but I can assign more students as well. Oh, okay. So one thing is, let's say the book is not in here, right? We get this a lot. So there's a couple of options. So obviously we went through browse, so you can browse directly up here. You can browse through the categories as we just went through. There's also an advanced search. So you can put in the specific title, author, ISBN. So sometimes when you're browsing through, it doesn't come up. Maybe there was a piece of information missing. Maybe there are several of those titles. Obviously, when we're looking at versions of books, especially at the college level, and certainly, of course, through K-12 as well. But we get that a lot. Like, this is a textbook for my college course, but it's, version 2, and I really need version 3. So you can do this advanced search as well to really try to drill down. But if it comes up empty, you can request to add the book. So to be clear, the title or ISBN is required, and ISBN is really the best way to get this book. So is this book required for school? This is critical because we do put an emphasis, and we really try as much as possible, as timely as possible, to get the books in the collection when they are required for school. Not to say that an adult who really wants to read a specific book, we will also, of course, add that into the collection, but we know that these students, it's time sensitive typically for them, because then they have an assignment or an exam, obviously that corresponds to the text. So is this book required for school? Yes or no? And then please fill in as much information and add as many comments as you think would be helpful. And there's of course some questions here. Is there a grade level? Is this a NIMAC book, etc. So a lot of the time with the NIMAC books, if we know that it's in there, then we just go in, we get it, and we add it to our collection, and it's very easy. Same thing if the publisher, we already have a relationship with the publisher, which we have just about 1,000 publishers that we're working with currently. They give us a version of the book. We put it in, make sure it's accessible, tagged, all that kind of stuff, and we add it in very quickly. The way that this takes a long time, or the reason why this could take a long time, is if we have to purchase the book and chop and scan the book, which we still do. Not very often, of course, because obviously, again, we're trying to create those relationships with publishers, get it already in an electronic version, and again, make sure that it's accessible before we put it in the collection. But it can take a little bit of time. I'm certainly, I need to be very clear on that. It could take less time, again, if it's already in the NIMAC or it's already, with a relationship with the publisher. It's when we have to chop and scan that it can take a long time. And this is, again, really critical for students. We try as much as possible to get it in the collection as fast as possible. The other thing that I just wanted to do was talk about the different versions of the book in terms of the format. Oh my goodness gracious, we only have 5 minutes left. I'm just trying to get it all in, or as much as possible. So let's just go back to our demo books real quick. just to explore. So we did read now before. Then there's this drop. Ask you, what other version do you want this book in? So Daisy, as many people might be familiar with, of course, is an accessible format. EPUB is the newer version. And of course, there's EPUB, different, I think we're on 3. So when you, let's say you download a book from the library, like through Overdrive or Libby or something like that, it is an EPUB version. When you use Dolphin Easy Reader, it typically is an EPUB version. But Daisy with images or Daisy with the text only, of course, obviously these are all accessible formats, but depending on the device that you're using, that might matter. The BRF is the Braille ready format. So a student who is accessing it with a Braille note taker or a Braille device that they're accessing or interfacing with a computer or a tablet or a phone, you would need it in that BRF version. And a lot of the books we also do have in just a plain text, Word document, but again, tagged and accessibility features, of course, in that. So you are able to access the books within all of these different types of formats, depending again on what device you are using it in. And then 2 more things, then we're going to hop to questions. So we do, as I mentioned, so we have a very robust help center. So you can search for different help topics, or of course, these are very commonly asked questions. How do I reset my password, my account? Different types of issues. And then on the bottom here, so we have a robust community, like a listserv, of course, that people are adding different questions into. You can email us or you can call, right? As I said, Monday through Friday, 5 to 5 Pacific, 8 to 8 Eastern. So that's under the Help Center. And then under this drop down, our Learning Center. So this is where all different types of how-tos and getting started guides are in. This ABC's, the Bookshare, for Bookshare for educators. This is step by step by step. So why Bookshare, how to sign up for an account, setting it up, finding books, a lot of the stuff that we did here. So this is a really nice resource. And again, you don't need to be logged in to look at this. So either the Help Center or the Learning Center. And then the very last thing is, let's see, browsing. Besides the Help Center, our Bookshare blog. So we were talking about, when is the beta coming out, different things like that. Our Bookshare blog is where we share a lot of that information. So it's just blog.bookshare.org. Okay, let's get to some questions with our 3 minutes left. Let's see. Is there a resource comparing various format types? So the question is something that provides information about which format works best for particular devices or applications. So from our experience and my own just anecdotal experience, it really is the individual. Some people really like just listening to the book. They only want the audio version. They just want to listen to it, and that's it. Some students, they really like that scanning through, and they like it on maybe a larger device that's touch, right? And like a tablet, Android, or Apple. Some people want it on their phone, especially older students, because A, everybody has a phone, and B, they always have it with them. So I would say it's hard to compare because it is such an individualized experience. And of course, in terms of the voice, right, the speed, the rate, all of that. So it's kind of hard to say. And yes, the Bookshare web reader. So the other sneak peek that we are also working on is a smart speaker Alexa skill. And of course, also Google Home rather. And so we are looking at all of those very high quality voices for the speech, because again, to be clear, right, these books are not human narrated. It's not a human that is talking about, reading the book. It is that synthesized speech. But yeah, those high quality voices, that is going to be part of that new Bookshare reader. And again, same thing. That was another major piece of this, and one of the reasons for the new updated version. All right, great. So I am going to just put my contact information in the chat. So it is very easy. It is just Vanessa L at Bookshare.org. That is the easiest way to get in touch with me. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. Again, if I don't know what the answer is, I will find out and get back to you. But are there any last questions? We have probably less than a minute left, but anything else, please feel free to share. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much. Thank you. Take care, everyone.